Welcome to Searching for History. I'm Erin. This is Rollin.
Hey guys.
What are we seeing today?
On this episode, we're going to drive down to Bucoda, which is an older town in South Thurston County in Washington State. And while we're there, we're going to look at the former site of the Seatco Prison, which was a territorial prison.
The first settler at what is now Bucoda was Aaron Webster in 1854. He sold the land to Oliver Shead in the 1860s, who renamed the settlement Seatco.
The Northern Pacific Railroad built a train station at Seatco in 1872, and it was probably somewhere around here, but it no longer exists.
Actually, I was just looking at an 1890 Sanborn fire insurance map that shows the train depot about 2 blocks to the north on the other side of the railroad tracks from where I was standing.
Later, the town was renamed Bucoda, using the first 2 letters of 3 investors in the town, Buckley, Coulter, and David.
Bucoda was the site of Washington's first territorial prison. It was here from 1874 to 1888.
Bucoda was officially incorporated June 7th, 1910.
That's actually a pretty old house right there.
Yeah.
You know that?
Uh-huh.
It's an original. Behind me here is the site of Seatco Prison. We were saying it was here from 1874 to 1888. And it had quite the reputation of a harsh manual labor prison. And I think it ended here in 1888 when the Walla Walla prison was built in eastern Washington. As you can see, nothing really exists. I'll try to find a historic photo that shows what it looked like, so hopefully we can put that up right here. This monument here, there's the plaque, the Historic Places plaque on this piece of stone, and that very well may be what's left of the prison. A few miles to the north, there's a historic cemetery, and I've heard that there are inmate graves in the cemetery. So we're gonna go from here and drive to the cemetery and see if we can find some of them. So the cemetery's up here on the right. Forest Grove Cemetery. Forest Grove Cemetery was formed about 1870. Reuben Crowder, a donation land claim homesteader, donated a corner acre of his land, now known as the original cemetery. Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
The 19th century symbolism in memorial stones and cemeteries. So you have the lamb, which represents children's graves. So a descending dove was a popular symbol in the 19th century. It represents a soul in flight or the Holy Spirit. You'll see urns, which represents life as temporal. Holding hands represents spouses saying a final goodbye, also guiding the other on their way. A hand pointing upwards represents ascension into heaven. Ivy represents abiding memory, friendship, and fidelity. And then if you see a weeping willow tree, that represents mortality and mourning. So when you're at a historic cemetery from the 1800s, keep these symbols in mind and you'll have a better understanding of what you're looking at in the different grave markers. So we're looking for markers that date from 1874 to 1888. And unfortunately, I have a hunch they might look something like this. Can you make out the numbers there? What, 1890? So this person was born in 1890 something, so that's not old enough. It's quite deteriorated though.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking the prison would not have wanted to spend a lot of money on a marker. So if we find them, they should probably be plain, simple markers. Well, I'm seeing 1880s markers, but nothing that's really jumping out at me as an inmate grave marker. Now there is things like this that could represent an inmate grave, but it's hard to say. Apparently this person was in the IWW.
Wow.
Britt Byron Smith, a gentleman for a cause. Well, unfortunately, we're not finding what looks like a inmate section of this cemetery.
No.
Well, we're on to something. There's an informational panel right here. Seatco, Washington, First Territorial Prison.
According to Seatco prison records, here is a list of inmates that may have been buried here. Leo was a Native American, Susan Clark, an Irish woman, Siak, a Native American, Henry Wise, he was German, Jenna Lamox, Luhan Cass, also Native American, S.W. Burns, Tam Louise, Native American, and James Carter. Seatco Prison was Washington's first territorial prison. It opened in 1878, and for 9 years it housed inmates in conditions that George France, who was an inmate there, called hell on earth. The inmates were hired out for hard labor. They wore ankle shackles all the time. Some inmates who died simply have a date in the comments. They don't even have any other information.
Not even a name?
No.
So who's this fellow right here?
That is Seatco Warden Jeremiah Jerry K. Smith. He's also interred at the original Forest Grove Cemetery. So he's buried here somewhere.
Third from the right.
Yeah.
So that's him right there.
Yeah.
So
That looks like him.
So this is the warden and these are guards. I mean, they all have rifles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says here, a wooden prison with 12-inch thick walls and dungeon-like cells. Hell on earth. So just the number of Native Americans you see on this list Tells me that there must have been quite a few Native Americans in the prison. So that's kind of interesting to think about. And then you have immigrants like from Ireland and Germany, but then also women. You know, a Susan Clark and a Jenna Lamox.
Yeah, so it tells me that they didn't have separate facilities for the sexes.
Yeah.
They just, if you committed a crime, everybody went to this prison.
It says that they're likely buried here, so we don't really know exactly if they are or where, but presumably somewhere in this area.
The inmates that were buried here from the Seatco Prison may not have any remaining markers here because their original markers were made of wood, and wood markers don't last very long at all. They may actually be buried right here in this field, and we just don't have any indication of that.
So Erin, what do you think about Bucoda, the Seatco Prison, and the Forest Grove Cemetery?
Well, it's definitely an interesting history. The cemetery is really cool. It's definitely worth checking out, and the informational panels here are really informative.
You don't really usually see that in a cemetery.
In a cemetery, right. But, you know, Bucoda is one of those towns that is another example of a town that was really big, well, bigger, and so foundational to Washington state history, having the first territorial prison here, and is now kind of just a small town on the side of a highway.
Yeah, with really like 3 of the original Main Street buildings still there, and people live in Bucoda, but there's not much going on there today. I think it's remarkable how a prison with such a reputation for hard labor was also a mixed prison with men and women.
Yes, but I think we need to remember that in our history, if you committed crimes, people had very little sympathy for you.
Yeah, and there just wasn't facilities for women.
There just wasn't.
Facilities, at least not around here in Washington Territory.
No, definitely not.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to like, share, comment on this video, and please subscribe to Searching for History.